Well, hello everyone. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Tonight, what I'm going to be talking about is the science of light and the research that we've done that shows that light can penetrate much deeper than previously understood, and that's due to what I will explain. So with that, now I'm going to get started with our science of light. So if we can get the first slide up, please. Okay, what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is that the larger area of a light, in this case a LED array, whether it's a panel, whether it's a palm device, or whether it's a transcranial helmet covering the whole helmet, the more area that you have actually helps in the depth. So if we look at our mini canopy, we've got 620 square centimeters there. And with our palm light that I have, this one here, it's got an area of 40 square centimeters. And our helmet has basically 10 of these devices to provide an illumination source of 400 square centimeters. So, larger area does not yield higher energy at depth. What? I just finished saying in the last slide, it does. Well, not necessarily. So in this case, there are some very large panels out there. And the thing is that they have a very low power density. So with a low power density, even if it's a large device, you're not going to get much penetration. So, and the source of that light might provide between 10 and 20 milliwatts per square centimeter, which is pretty low, which means by the time you go in a centimeter, it's going to be quite low already, if it penetrates even that far, depending on the power level. As you can see with our mini canopy in the middle picture, we have 620 square centimeters for the mini canopy, and our large canopy is six of the mini canopies, and that's basically 3 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet, or 36 inches by 24 inches for a large canopy. So we have a high power density that's anywhere from 5 to 10 times what's out there and as far as our competitors, and probably even higher than that. So when we're talking the mini canopy, we've got 100 milliwatts per square centimeter, and with our large canopy, we still maintain that same power density. So here's an explanation of what's happening, why we can get higher density. It really comes up to the larger area, and LED density yields a higher energy at a depth in your body. So if we look at this here, what we call with our device, the SunPower, and we have a registered trademark called Wall of Light, the LEDs are set up in such a fashion that they're very close together. As you can see over here, they're quite far apart on the alternative devices. So that's an example up here of an LED panel by one of the companies from China. But we have our LEDs very close. We're also running the LEDs at pretty much their maximum power that they can run at. And the other thing is, we're not trying to focus the light. We're trying to make it in such a fashion that the LEDs overlap each other. The light beams from each other overlap. So at the treatment surface, which is just around an inch away, you're talking a very even amount of light, as we call it, the wall of light. It's very even in both directions. If you talked about an X, Y, an X and a Y going deep, it's very even illumination. That even illumination is actually 2 at the highest power that we can possibly get to with our cooling technology. And that's key. We have to cool these LEDs. That's extremely important, because if you don't cool them right, they burn out much sooner. And they also, the efficiency drops quite a bit. So when we're looking at these other devices, they may only run these LEDs. Oh, they claim there might be 5 watts or 3 watt LEDs, but they're only running them at maybe a watt of power. So there's no comparison between their LEDs and what we're doing with our LEDs, especially with the cooling. And because we put them so close together, you would have to have a major amount of cooling, which is what I have. I have a patent pending on how I'm cooling these devices. So the light from here overlaps, and when it does, it scatters and adds to the center. This light over here scatters in all directions and ends up aiding to the amount of light that appears down here. So you end up with a much, much deeper penetration than these little spots of light that you have with the competitors. So as I said, we have the mini canopy, we have the Palm series devices, and we have the large canopy, and we have the helmet as well. So if you were to take this large canopy to the right top corner, and you kept the number of LEDs, but squeezed it down to maybe a fifth, maybe a sixth of the area, now you would start getting close to our mini canopy. So that's the difference between the light. It's that scattering effect that's actually adding to the depth. Here's what's academically accepted by from various universities and those that are doing light. And this is really dealing with a single spot laser light penetration and showing you the tissue penetration of visible light. And if you had a small spot of light on the skin from a laser, it's going to keep reducing, as it shows here in this diagram. This is a well-established diagram, and people have accepted this as the gospel, I guess you could say. But it is what you're seeing is just a real reduction of light by the time you end up going into the tissue by a centimeter. And that's because it's the limitations of how much power you put up here on this surface. If you put more power on the surface here in that little spot, you'll burn the skin. And that's really what's happening with the small spot size from lasers. Unless you have a diffuser, then you can go a lot more power and you can spend a lot more money as well. So let's go to the next slide here. Oh, there you go. So what we did here, I think I'm going to put this over to the side. I'm going to try this. Let's just try this. Because that'll black out the background. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out something here. Can we flip it somewhere? Do you know? Okay, all right, great. That's better. So what we did, this is probably, well, it was data collected in 2014. And this was using 635 nanometer light. And what we were working with is to look at photoactivation of a compound or a drug at a given depth. And what you see with the bottom scale here is the tissue thickness. 2 centimeter, 4 centimeters, 6, 8, and 10 centimeters. And as I said in that diagram before, you saw they were only talking about 1 centimeter. And in reality, here I'm doing 635 nanometer with some pretty powerful lights that we developed. But 660 or 810 or 1050 would penetrate far more than what we're doing here. Now this is chicken. This is using chicken tissue. And what you're seeing here with the blue line is that if you had an opening of 1 square centimeter and that's with 200 milliwatts per square centimeter. So there's only 200 milliwatts here available out of 1 square centimeter, and you're shining through just over 4 centimeters of chicken. You can see that the light has dropped considerably from the point of 2 centimeters thick of chickens. You can see it's gone from, let's say, 1.2 milliwatts per square centimeter down to way down. So it's probably 0.15 at this point. You go to just over 6 centimeters and it's way down in the weeds. And then by the time you get to 8 centimeters, there's nothing left. Like really, this is very low levels of light now down in this region. Now with PBM, the thing is, even with low levels of light, you can still make a difference, depending on the response of what's happening within the cell. But if I just took, so this is what I'm talking about here is the area. So the area of the opening, if I keep making the opening bigger and bigger and bigger with the same power density of 200 milliwatts per square centimeter, so 200 here, 200 here, 200 here, a 3 by 3 array would be 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200, and the next row, right? 14, 16, 18. So really what's happening here is that each one of those spots, each square centimeter has 200 milliwatts per square centimeter. And when we opened up the field, so now we're illuminating the bottom of the tissue of this chicken. It's basically like chicken in a lasagna dish. And we're illuminating the light from the bottom. And first we only had the 1 square centimeter. Then we opened it up a little larger and larger and larger and larger. So we had a big lasagna dish. As you can tell here, 10 centimeters by 16 centimeters was the distance area that we opened it up to. So as you can see here, a 3 by 3 array has far more light. So even if we look right above it, we have far more energy that's available just by opening up the bottoms, the bottom of below the light at the bottom. And what we did was we measured with a probe in the middle of the tissue to see what was coming through. So here we got, so that's 3 by 3. 4 by 4 is this green area here. Okay, 5 by 5 as 6 by 6 we're seeing here. Sorry, that was 10 by 10. Here's the green here, 4 by 4. And then we went to 8 by 8 centimeters. You can see it's a little lower. So, and then when we got to 10 by 10, we didn't get much more. The 10 by 10 and 10 by 16 is the same. So we opened it up that big. So when we're talking our palm light, this is in centimeters. So our palm light has 40 square centimeters of light output. So 6 by 6 is 36 square centimeters. We got a little bit larger than that. And we're also not using 635 nanometer, but we're using 660, which penetrates much deeper, or 810. So this is the whole purpose of this graph, was to show that we can penetrate with light much, much deeper than what you saw in the last slide. You can see 6 centimeters, even 7.5 centimeters. We're still getting a fair amount of optical power through all that tissue. So this is the same representation. This is all just plotted across for the 5 centimeter depth. And you can see that as the area increases, so does the power, because that's the area that you're providing. There's a higher amount of power. And this happens to be with our very powerful light, which provided 200 milliwatts per square centimeter. But as you can see, the larger the area kept giving more light at a given depth, more optical energy. Okay, even at 7.5 centimeters deep, you could still see that's about 3 inches you can see that as the area increased even from green to blue, which is 64 to 100, you're still getting an increase in light energy. Now, unfortunately, there's a little mistake here. Somehow something went wrong with our science, but that probably should have been a little bit higher, but that's reality. I'm just giving you what we measured. So there might have been something that went wrong for us. This is basically telling the same story, where we had, in this case, sorry, I said 200 milliwatts per square centimeter. This particular test was done at 300 milliwatts per square centimeter. And it's pretty uniform regardless of, there's a little bit of a dip here because of when we were working with the different areas, start cutting off some of the LEDs. So that's why you'd see it's dropped here at this point. But as you can see, the more area that you have, the more optical power that you're measuring. Here's the actual data for that. Here is, now this is where we kept the opening size by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, okay? And this was at 635 at 200 milliwatts per square centimeter. Here's chicken breast, and what you can tell by this is as we were, the dot with the solid line is the measurements that we made with the spots on there. The line going through it is the what would be the linear, like trying to see how it matches your data, and you can see it's very, very close to a straight line in this case. And even for the red, there's a straight line, and for the green, it's not too bad either. The data follows a fairly good linear relationship. And there's a logarithmic plot on the side, but I meant as far as the line goes. So what's happening here, as we were going through, this is this 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, as we kept going thicker with the tissue, we kept measuring what light was getting through. And you can see that we were still getting a considerable amount of light here. When it comes to the red, which was a pig mammary, this is very, very similar to a woman's breast. That's why we chose it. The fat content in it, and this was done, like I say, about 10, 12 years ago. This information, but the pig mammary was what we ended up selecting for because of we were trying to look at treating breast cancer with this type of our light and a specific compound. And we also decided to try a bovine mammary. Well, that is a cow's udder, and it was utterly impossible to work with this stuff. It was pretty bad because the cow was lactating, or at least the cow was lactating before it was butchered. And we got this huge, massive chunk of flesh that was a mess to work with. So it was difficult, but we still saw that we were able to see light penetrate even to 5 centimeters. But you can see the amount of drop that we're talking about with a logarithmic scale as far as light, but it's still getting through. There's still light being able to be measured at 5 centimeters. Our biggest thing was here, because as it turns out, that was enough light that we could, the amount of energy that was coming through this pig mammary would have been, I'll show you in a later slide, it was ideal for treating breast cancer with a half an hour of treatment time. Now this is with, I know SunPowerLED is exclusively dealing with light only. We are not dealing with the air that's called PBM or photobiomodulation. We're not talking about using light to photoactivate a drug. That's another company that I have, and it's still in the research phase, and we're trying to raise funds for it that we can get further research done in that area. So this is a slide I wanted to show you as well. This was done at the University of Toronto, and very early they were saying, no, 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 you can't penetrate more than a centimeter, and that goes back to that slide. Well, what happened here? This is a container about the size of a large juice container, that you put in the fridge. For what would that be? 2-quart juice container. It's actually 11 centimeters across, roughly 4 inches across from here to here. 4, 2.5, 10, just over 4 inches was across here. What we had done is we had mounted high power lights all the way around, LEDs, pods all the way around this device. And what we were looking at is measurement, how much light was in the center of this. And this was done, like I say, at the University of Toronto. And this liquid that was inside here was a mixture of water, India ink, and lipids. And the thing about that was they told me that the light properties inside this phantom breast were like bang on to what a woman's breast would be like. So what we were able to do is with the measurements, we were able to go from one side all the way across to the other side along a slider, and we measured the light, what it would see at each one of these positions here. And what it told us is that it was really cool. What in the end, what it meant was we had enough light in the center of this large 4-inch diameter breast that we could easily activate the compound with a half-an-hour treatment time. So that's what we were looking at with this. Now the graph is pretty interesting. You'll see that the black, so when we had you see this light probe in the center here, when we had it about 2 centimeters in from the edge, we had this amount of light. Now, at the very bottom here, this amount of light right here at 10 milliwatts per square centimeter is enough to do the treatment over a half-an-hour period of time. So that's where I said in the middle of the breast at 5 centimeters here, we had enough light there. But when we were at 2 centimeters over, you can see the light level is extremely high with this black. And as you start going in towards the center, you can even see it optically here that the light starts dropping down to the center area. But it's not black in the center. There's still 10 milliwatts of light left in the center. So as this sensor was looking just one direction, so it was really looking that way at this surface. So as we went towards the center, it looked at that. What was cool is as you kept going this way, and even though it was looking at this far wall, light would come around and actually hit the front of the sensor. So that's why you see this black curve go like this. So when you get right beside it, it's still like on the far side, you have light that's looping around. And we did it from one direction and the other direction, and we were able to say that this is what happens with the power then from this, let's say almost 2.5 centimeters in to 2.5 centimeters over here, that we had a certain light level, as you see, but that would drop towards the center. So this was revolutionary because everybody told us it was impossible to treat anything below a centimeter. And with this graph and the tests we were running, we're showing we could go 5 centimeters in with this design. And that wasn't even, we could have had another layer of light, so we could even raise this more. And we could have had another layer of light if that was a breast, could be at the front of the breast, could be light too. So it could be totally surrounding the whole breast as well as the front. Here's an example. This would be, we wanted to look at what would it be like if we had almost like a mammogram. And so we we set everything up once again for another round of tests to look at how much light was coming through if a woman was to use it almost like a mammogram machine, but the mammogram machine just had the lights on there. How would that work for providing light? And as you can see, there's still a lot of light right down the center line. There wouldn't be a problem with doing this for treatment. Here's another interesting thing that we did early on is we wanted to see what happens when you have a certain thickness of light, kind of like, just imagine again, this is a lasagna dish with the bottom here being the lasagna dish, there's the sides of it, and you have a layer of tissue in there. What happens when you open up the one end and you're shining light into that? What will happen with the measurements going across this way? What happens when you have a certain thickness of 2 centimeters? What happens when you have 3 centimeters? So as the tissue gets thicker, what's going to happen to your light reading over here at 5 centimeters? From here, when it's 5 centimeters, or 4.8 centimeters high here. What's the light level going to be like here? What's the light level going to be here? And this is in centimeters, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centimeters from the vertical, directly vertical. And there's the location. So this is the area that was illuminated in the bottom. This is 0. This is our 1 centimeter. There's our 5 centimeters. So 6 probe locations. Well, here's what it shows. When we only have the tissue 2 centimeters thick, the light drops dramatically, as you can see here, as you go further and further from just above the light source. So 5 centimeters. See how much that falls? What's really cool is the next one. When we have 3 centimeters, we actually are seeing that light falls off less. And the cool thing is when you're 5 centimeters thick in tissue, which is what can happen in a human body, when you shine your knee with light, what's going to happen? Well, that light is going to go down. Can we go back? So if you're shining right here on your knee, 5 centimeters away from your knee, the tissue that's above your on the top side of your bone and the bottom side of the bone is going to travel laterally along that tissue. So it's pretty cool how that when you have that thickness, that the light just keeps going along that path. So as the tissue gets thicker, more light will end up way over on the far side of where you are. It goes laterally in all directions as well as deep. So that's why you end up treating much deeper as well because of this effect. We did this here. This was again coming back to the cancer stuff. This was at 635 nanometer. We had this red here. This red represents our powerful LEDs. And we put a thickness of tissue, as you can see here. We put a thickness of tissue in here. This was the pork breast tissue. And we had mice that were under anesthesia. And we had pumping. It was like little miniature mice coffins. No, we didn't harm the mice. They lived. As a matter of fact, the ones they had a 1 centimeter diameter tumor in the bottom part of the mouse, and we laid it over into this little miniature kind of like coffin, but it was pumping the anesthesia through them, so they wouldn't they'd be out of it and they wouldn't move around on us, walk out of our study or anything. So what we were able to do is look at the light levels that were coming through this tissue, and everybody again said there's no way that you can treat beyond 1 centimeter. And one thing about it is when I'm talking about compounds like we had to trigger, you have to have a much higher level of light to activate the compounds than you do when you're talking of PBM. So where you might need 20 milliwatts per square centimeter to activate a certain compound, you might only need 1 milliwatt of light power for a PBM for reducing your inflammation in your knee, or you're trying to increase blood flow or do any of those things. That's the bottom end, and they do see that even lower levels of light helps to still with photobiomodulation. So even low levels of light can be very helpful. One funny thing that happened the first time we started testing without the mouse, we started testing the light properties of this tissue and had this all set up. We had this very powerful light on top underneath, and we were looking at a half an hour treatment, just like a woman's breast. So these mice, by the way, had a breast cancer cell line in them, and that's what produced the 1 centimeter diameter tumor that they had in the back of it. And well, where everybody said there's no way you could treat that mouse, we went through 4 centimeters of pork breast tissue, which was, like I say, equivalent to a woman's breast, went through the skin of the mouse, went into the tumor, and killed the cancer cells in the tumor, and cleaned up the mice from the cancer after going through 4 centimeters of pork breast tissue. But the funny part that we had was in the beginning when we first did this test, this tissue, after it kept, the light readings were changing on us. We're trying to figure it out. It turns out that we had made, this red light was so powerful, it was actually cooking the tissue in between. So because there's no blood flow, the temperature of this tissue kept heating up higher and higher and higher, and we were actually cooking it. So we needed to add airflow into this tissue to try and stop it from raising the temperature of the tissue, and we were able to finally win out with our trial by doing that. So I did do a presentation in England with LEDs and versus lasers, and talking again about tissue penetration. And I'm just going to show you right now what one of the things I presented there, which was accepted by some really neat researchers over there that were looking at my information. So what we did is this was done at the University of Buffalo. You can see that, I just want to make sure that that's not going to cause any trouble. Maybe not. I'll move that over here. There we go. I'm just going to see a little bit. Okay. Anyways, this ball is a very expensive ball, and normally people on the internet and on webinars that you may have watched, they'll take their little light meter that they have and they'll bring it up and say, see how much energy it is? Well, this doesn't tell you anything except the energy in one little small spot. It doesn't tell you the real energy that's coming down to the area unless you happen to have a super even light field, which is not the case for most devices, except ours. But anyways, what we did is we put an expensive laser on top of this device with 660 nanometer, 810, and 1050, and we compared that to our palm devices with a 660, 810, and 1050. And what's so special about this ball is it doesn't matter if it was a laser beam coming in or what, like it was just a very culminated beam coming right into this ball without anything on top. So forget about the tissue, just shine the light in here. Wouldn't matter where I pointed that laser beam inside this ball, it bounces around everywhere because it's round. It's got a reflective surface on the inside. You can see a little bit of white inside this area here, but it's basically white all the way around with this special material. This is like a $10,000 ball here. And if you put a light measurement device, you can calibrate those measurement devices, which I did, to the thing, so you know exactly when you have a certain amount of optical power coming in, that you can say how much optical power is actually there present, and it's calibrated for the different wavelengths. So it doesn't matter what wavelength you're working at. This ball is very reflective, and in this case, I had Thor Labs meters stuck inside this ball to do the measurements, which are highly accurate measurement devices for this. And what we were able to show is that light coming through this opening, first of all, if there was nothing on top, if I put a 5 watt, let's say my palm device at 1050 nanometer, and I shone it through this little opening up here, then that would measure, let's say, 5 optical watts inside here. If I took a 5 watt laser and I shone it into the opening, I would see the same light levels. I would measure the 5 watts. So 5 watts LEDs versus 5 watt from a laser source. And what I then did is shone through tissue up here. We had used pork, chicken, pork, and steak from the local Tops food market. We bought some meat there, and we're able to put it on top here, so I'll show you that in a minute. But this is the actual picture of the ball, and we did this at University of Buffalo. So here's my device, just showing you with no chicken on top, or pork, or steak, and we put the light device and just shone it. We did that with all of them, measured the light level going through, what was the measurement, and compared it. Here's a laser going through at 810 nanometer, going through tissue. So we basically had the tissue on top of here, and then here is a arc laser 1050 nanometer that we used up here. Now, it didn't matter with the laser. You could bring this thing right up to the ceiling and point it at the meat, and as long as you hit your beam right here, it would still measure the same optical power in the inside. So that's because the beam does not diverge. It stays as a culminated beam. Now, I don't know what purpose it would be to treat a person from the other side of the room, but this does cause a problem, because that beam could be harmful to your eyes if by chance that beam would point towards you. Whereas with LED devices, because of the diffusion of light, you don't have that issue. So that's a high safety with laser or LEDs versus lasers. Now, what we did here is you can see that see what happens to when we're looking at chicken, pork, and steak at a different wave at 6 with our LED devices, and then we looked at lasers at 660 and the different tissues. Now, one thing, this was not, in this case, it wasn't corrected for the power level. You'd have to move all of these up, because the power of this laser device at 660 nanometer was about 500 milliwatts, as opposed to our more powerful 5 watt device. Okay, so basically you're seeing, as you go deeper, you lose more and more light through the tissue, and you see the same thing happening here. Okay, this is when it's corrected for the power. And so what I did is I corrected the power for the 810 nanometer and the 660. So the blue here is the laser, the LED, and the orange color is the laser, and you can see that there's almost, with a chicken, it's almost perfectly the same. Matter of fact, we're getting slightly more light through the tissue at 2¼ inches than the laser. We did the same thing for 1050, and as a matter of fact, with the 1064 nanometer laser compared to our LED at 1050, you can see that in this case, the two LED and laser tracked very much the same when it was 3/4 inch or 1.5 inches. So basically, this is when we're talking the steak or pork chop, it was 1 pork chop, 2 pork chops, or 3 pork chops. Same with the steak, 1 steak, 2 steaks, or 3 steaks. So that's how we came up with the 3/4, 1.5 inches, and 2¼ inches. But you can see in this case, the laser at the 1064 is just a little bit more optical power coming out of it. Whereas at the 810, we're actually a little bit more. So there is some slight differences between the laser and LED. But if you're buying a 5-watt laser at 1064, you could be looking at $20,000 to $30,000. And when you're buying an LED device from us, a 1050 Super Palm, you're looking at $1,900. And by the way, all our devices right now have the Black Friday discount of 10%. So go to the website and you can place your order there and get that 10% at this time while we're offering it for the Black Friday. Here's the same type of thing, looking at it from using a bar graph. So as you can see, the red is the LEDs, the blue is the laser, and you can see that as we increased our thickness of tissue, we ended up being, very, very similar to the laser with a slight benefit on the 660 and 810, and with the 1050, 1064 laser, just a slight improvement with the laser over the LEDs. This is the same thing we did with the pork, and you can see the same type of thing happening here, and also with the pork with just slightly better transmission. So as you go through deeper into more and more tissue, you end up losing more and more light, which makes totally good sense. But what I wanted to do is show that when you're talking matching a laser device of the same power as what we have going through tissue. Now, this is not, obviously, this is not live tissue. This is, there's no blood flowing through it, and there's other factors as well. But for the most part, this gives us a great benchmark for what's happening there. So I do want to thank the folks that have helped me big time in gathering all this data, Ezra and Paul and Dr. Robert Zawidisky and Dr. Heyman Bowen. So thank you to the team. So we were able to present this. I wanted to show you this just to hear some healing examples. This young man had swung a pickaxe, and that pickaxe went through the dirt much easier than he thought, came around and hit him right above the ankle, and in the process severed his tendon right through. Now they did do surgery on it and attached it, and within a couple days it fell apart. And so they had to do another surgery on this area. So there's a lot of trauma that's taking place there. Well, they told him it was going to be 6 to 9 months before he was walking. And you can see at 2 weeks how much this is all healed, this whole area that was sewn up. And at 3 weeks, you can see here, now we have actual videos that show that how much improvement he's able to move his ankle around with this one. And from as soon as he started with the PBM, that was 3 times a day for approximately 20 minutes or a little longer on this area within days of the second surgery. And he had to drive in, so there was a ways that they had to come, but then there was no pain during the healing process, which is one of the things that's a hallmark for PBM, is the ability to speed up healing without the pain and do with less scar tissue, or even eliminating scar tissue buildup. So I have a video of him. Sorry, can you go back for 1 sec? I have a video of him at 4 weeks walking across the parking lot where he wasn't supposed to walk for 6 to 9 months, 6 to 8 months time. So imagine how much less atrophy of the muscles and everything would be because of that. This is a diabetic foot ulcer. Now, this foot was going to be amputated within a week, and our palm light, the super palm, got brought into the hospital, and they started treating this diabetic ulcer, and they were going to amputate within a week, and the amputation was canceled because everything looked so much better within even a week of treatment every day, once a day for 20 minutes, that the surgery was canceled. And here you can see at 2 months, it's down to the size of just a bit bigger than a quarter. And the healing was still or maybe a quarter and a half as far as size. But in another 2 more months, I don't have that picture, but it was totally healed. We have, by the way, if you want to take a picture of go to this takes you right into the presentation area of the PBM 2024, the QR code. This is my 3-year-old granddaughter. She ended up, she was working in the kitchen with my son-in-law, and although many times she had mixed Jello before, this is one occasion where he just finished pouring the boiling water into the bowl, the plastic bowl, and for some reason she decided to pull it towards herself and dump the boiling water down her leg. There's I've had those that are skin specialists, and they say this is definitely like 2nd and 3rd degree burns on this leg, and she was able to use the mini canopy because her grandfather only lives 20 minutes away. Real benefit to the family that were close by, but they were able to use the mini canopy, and you can see at day 6 already it's all beautifully scabbed up, and by day 8 the scabs are all fallen off, and in a month's time you could hardly tell that there was a burn there, and by 2 years you couldn't see any evidence of visible scars there. So the fact that you can speed up healing and not require surgery for grafting and other good challenges that come, the faster you get this leg, a burn, healed, the less chance of infection setting in and all the other problems. And you got the kid back on their feet by day 8, which is fantastic. So larger area does yield higher energy at depth. So as I mentioned before, we have our mini canopy at 620 square centimeters or 12 inches by 8.5. We have the large canopy, which is 6 of those, that area. Okay, we have the Palm series, which is 40 square centimeters. And we have the helmet for 400 square centimeters, basically 10 of the palms. And the big thing is that we have over 100 milliwatts per square centimeter with all of our devices, except for the transcranial helmet, that we've actually lowered it down to half of what we could have, just because it tends to be a bit on the warm side. So other than that, we have a very large area, and that large area helps you to penetrate deeper. So this is when we're talking about the helmet, again, back to the larger area yields a higher energy at depth. This is a case report that was done by Dr. Margaret Naser at Boston University School of Medicine. And she followed this individual, and we're going to play the video in just a moment here. But it just, because of we strategically located these light clusters, so it covers, by the time it goes through the skull, there's such an even illumination over the whole skull. And this person dramatically improved, such that it's been very impressive to those who know about brain injury and when it comes to concussions. So we'll play that video now. Hi, Rose.
Hi.
Tyson?
Hello.
So, Tyson, what happened?
Well, I went to like a cadet group, so it's like kind of like you learn skills and stuff. And I fell and hit my head. I got a really bad concussion, so I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't read. If I stood up for too long, I'd get a really bad headache. And we were trying different things like oils and stuff like that. And then my mom's friend recommended this, the red light therapy.
Yeah?
And so we went over here and we tried it, and straight away I felt results after it was done. My headache cleared up like quite a bit, and that day I was able to pick up a book and read, when before I couldn't even read a sentence. I'd get a really
And
bad
when
headache.
did this happen?
Happened I think last week Friday.
Okay, last week.
No, it was Thursday that the
Thursday, last
so
week
it was a
was
week
Thursday.
ago.
A week ago, Thursday.
Yeah,
And-
and he had like severe memory loss. He still doesn't remember
Yeah.
that day at all.
Right?
So I don't know if he'll gain that memory back. But we took him to Mac, and they did a CT scan and that, because he was continuously asking the same questions, like, what happened? Why does my head hurt? And like it was on a reel, like probably every couple of minutes we tell him what happened. He's like, oh, that would be why my head hurts. I don't remember going to cadets.
Yeah.
And then he would ask it all over again, like, how come my head hurts? So like he probably did it hundreds of times.
I
So they
don't
did a
remember
CT
anything.
scan and they didn't see anything on the CT
That's at
scan.
McMaster University.
Yeah, at McMaster.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he's got to follow up with a neurologist in a few weeks because it was that bad. But
Right.
he's
Did you
like-
have any double vision?
No, not that I remember of that day.
But you couldn't read a book and
No.
you couldn't watch a video or
No.
No, he had to be in a
I
dark
could,
room.
I had to really lie down. If I stood up and tried to move around, I'd get a bad headache. I tried reading a book. I got, I think, a sentence, and then I got a split and a headache again, so.
Okay.
Because he really likes reading, so he was hoping to, because he was bored. He gets bored because he was lying around in a dark room listening to audiobooks. But yeah, the minute he started reading it, just
Okay. And so you did a light treatment under the helmet,
Yeah.
and that was 1 minute of the bright red and 3 minutes.
of, like, the one you can't see.
Right, that's the near infrared.
Yeah.
And so 1 minute and 3 minutes, so 4 minutes of treatment.
And it was amazing. Like, after the 4 minutes, I could tell straight away my headache was gone. I just overall felt better.
yeah. So you were still tired and stuff. You
Yeah.
didn't read yesterday yet, did you?
No, I didn't read yesterday.
Oh, you didn't read on the day you got the red light
Yeah.
therapy. Yesterday you started reading.
Yeah, I tried it, and I'm like, hey, I can easily read. I don't get a headache at all.
Well, we
And-
could tell a difference because he was really subdued. Like he's been really, like just hanging out in his room, really quiet and not.
Right.
And now he's like, whoop. So I'm like.
Oh, that is
he-
excellent.
He's definitely back in that sense.
And we're going to do just one more final treatment
We're
here,
gonna do another
probably.
one, yeah, because
And just to make sure that things are covered. But
yeah.
Yeah.
well, thank you very much for being on our video,
Yeah.
Tyson. And really neat how we were able to see this. This is going to tell a lot of people what light therapy can do.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
very grateful. Yeah, we were very, very blessed and pleased that we found this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all the best. Bye for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed tonight. We sorry about that video with the audio. Well, things happen sometimes. Yeah, so I just want to say that we'll answer a question or two, and unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but because of the timing, tonight, we're a little bit later. So if there's anything up there, I'll just mention that I'm wearing my special tie tonight. I dedicate tonight's tie performance to Winston. He was suggesting I should put my tie back on again. This tie, the thing written on it, it says, the answer is more power. And the funny part is I got this tie probably about 35 years ago. And our whole life in electronic design has been the answer is more power. And as a matter of fact, this is a very limited source. The earthly source, I believe I'm plugged into the heavenly source of a lot of energy. And so I'm having a great time learning along the way and seeing a lot of people helped. So yeah, thank you for joining us. And if you've got questions, please email us at info@SunPowerLED. Also, I want to mention again about Dr. Wendy Messler, who will be on next Tuesday with me with the results on Parkinson's, some of the other issues of the brain. We've been able to see with our helmet concussions, as you saw there, other concussions, also to do with strokes, dementia, depression. We have the study that came in from West Virginia, with West Virginia, that with opiate addiction and depression, significant improvement there. You know, and they did a study with 50 people, and they ended up with, they had some that actually ended up being incarcerated. I guess that's what happens when you're dealing with a population of people that have been addicted to drugs. So it ended up that 17 out of the group that they started with, out of the 25, 17 of them that followed through to the end in 2 months had significant improvement in their situation, and less depression, less desire for drugs, just a whole lot better outlook on life. So that study was done. It's published. Do look at our, go to the PBM 2024 website. There's a lot of stuff there. Also mentioned there was a really decent interview that was done by Alex Fergus. We have him posted on our website as well. If you lean towards looking at things at YouTube, we have quite a few videos under SunPowerLED under YouTube, so you can find it there. We've got a bunch of videos. So I forget how many, but it's a lot of videos, and of all different kinds of things. So thank you again for joining us tonight, and please tell your friends to join us next week. And also just a reminder that we have that 10% off right now for Black Friday. Okay, and I see there's another question or two. Let's go have a look, or maybe a comment or two. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your comment, Dean, on in the know. So yeah, there's a lot of research that has gone into our devices, and some say, well, it's a little more expensive, your devices, than some things that you can find on the web. Well, we have poured a lot of work into these devices, and we also build them in North America, so they're very reliable, and we stand behind our. I'm sorry, that was Deanna. That I didn't see the rest of the names. So, anyways, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Tuesday. And there's a question here: radiation or EMF? Okay, very good questions. And that would be, as far as radiation, we only have light. All energy is a form of radiation, but we don't have any radiation in rays outside of the light itself. So when we're talking radiation or EMF, electromagnetic field, we don't have anything coming from our device, because first of all, we use high quality power supplies. So we use a power supply that's medical grade. So the power supply is very clean, and that's one thing. And the second thing is that we're operating on low voltage DC, so it's extremely safe. And you can also take this device on an airplane with you, and as a matter of fact, even treat people, which we did up at, 30,000 feet. We were able to help some people with using our light on the plane because it can be brought on in your carry-on because it doesn't have any lithium batteries to worry about or anything like that. So you can easily take it with you without any issues, and you don't run out of battery power. And so, well, anyways, all the best. We'll see you next Tuesday.